Welcome to Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery. A mental health and addiction recovery podcast show. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, Path to Recovery. I'm your host, Fred Carroll, and with me, like always, every week, like clockwork, even though the clock's got pushed forward, spring forward, Scott H. Silverman, life coach, author, father, not grandfather, even though he's old enough, father, husband, brother, son, nephew, uncle. Are you
knucklehead?
Are you an uncle?
Yeah, I'm an uncle, yeah.
Uncle, everything. Scott is everything. See, even you could become like Scott. How are you?
Yeah, a resume that resembles a resume.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well. With that, maybe I'm out of sorts because of the time change, but it's been an interesting weekend. What is it, Monday? It's Monday.
But I'll tell you what, it's 7 o'clock here, 7 p.m., and the sun is still out. I mean, it's just about dark. It's in the high 40s right now, so we're approaching 50s as we Is today St. Patrick's Day? When's St. Patrick's Day?
I think today.
Yeah.
The 14th.
I better get cooking. I need some cabbage in my life. So
there you go.
I was going to talk to you about, a fentanyl bust that happened in my local town here with two individuals who decided to be not too smart of criminals, I guess, because they decided to use an address that wasn't theirs to deliver drugs through the mail, which came through.
So they just kind of picked an address and then kind of waited around for the delivery each day.
It's vague, but it looks like the address is connected to one of the people, like maybe a mother's house or something like that.
So it was somebody they knew.
Yeah, they clearly knew the drugs were on the way via UPS, I believe. And because they were arrested in a parked car not too far away because the cops were watching them because they caught them. And one of the reasons I never realized this, and it makes perfect sense because, the drug dealers don't want to lose money and the people buying don't want to purchase product without it being the weight. But when something weighs exactly a certain amount, it kind of keys the authorities off, because kilos are very popular. It's not like the drug dealer could make it 1.5, which would be a rare number, and sell it for the price of 1 and all that, But let's not give them any ideas either. So let them keep getting busted.
I got a better one for you before you go into another quick story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I read in the paper some active public methamphetamine abuser. He self-admits in this article, got a hold of some methamphetamine that he was concerned might be cut with something bad for him, i.e. fentanyl. So because he'd been tweaking, I guess, a little bit, needs something in his system, he made a phone call, called 911, and he asked, if the sheriffs could come by and test this so he wouldn't, and he thinks in his mind, he's being totally upfront, practicing self-care, harm reduction. Can you come by and test my drugs? I want to make sure I don't want to overdose, thinking this is a very sensitive overdose environment. So they come over, they actually respond, 911, Sheriff's Department, they said in the article, come over, test it. And sure enough, it had methamphetamine in it. And they didn't say if there's anything else, but at that point they stopped and arrested the guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to jail, and it wasn't his first offense. So he might do 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Which both of us agree, though, that jail doesn't necessarily solve the problem either.
No, it doesn't solve the problem.
It
absolutely
deters, it probably deters others, maybe. It might deter others. But like you were saying with the testing, even in fentanyl, and, me and you were talking off air about my documentary that I began pre-shooting, just doing pre-interviews where I'm going to interview active addicts and talk to them about trying to remove the stigma and stuff like that, completely anonymously. And I was talking about the fentanyl thing, and what I learned was they want the fentanyl. That's the difference. See, they actually want the fentanyl, and they are now using the fentanyl test strips, which are very inexpensive, but they're using it for the wrong reasons. They're not using it they want to make sure there's fentanyl in it because they're paying for it. They're paying a premium price. And I guess that's another problem now. That's just a new problem we understand that. We understand that the addict always wants to, it's just like when somebody dies of a heroin overdose, a heroin addict says, oh my God, the stuff must be great. That's the mentality of a drug addict. And
right.
It's quite alarming from a person that doesn't do drugs to interview somebody. I could see where I'm going to struggle in certain situations because some of these stories are brutal. They're brutal. And I'm just there as the reporter, basically, to talk to them. I can't solve any of their problems beyond getting them help, which I've chosen to do, and you're going to become a part of that, where I can't give them money because you can't give a drug addict money because then I'm just enabling them further. They're telling the truth. That's one thing I could tell is they're not afraid to talk about it because they don't carry a lot of shame, because they're not being exposed. See, when you expose them, that's when, they get ashamed and stuff, but I can't do that to them. That's not my job. My point in this is to open people's eyes because some of these people I talk to, you wouldn't believe when I tell you what they do for a living or what potentially they do for a living or their ages. I spoke to a 71-year-old man today that is an active user, 71 years old, been an active user for 20 plus years. Now, overdosed, I think 4 times already. Mm-hmm. But he talks about it, about kicking it and stuff. So I was really set back by the fentanyl strips, how they're being misused
and there are big advocates right now that want to get fentanyl strips and more hands than they tried to do with Narcan. Narcan obviously reverses the overdose, but potentially a fentanyl test strip could prevent the overdose. So, I don't even know what company makes that, but I've talked to the people that make Narcan and, they're busy they're overwhelmed with, trying to get product out in the hands of those who really want it. So to me, when you articulate it the way you did, you can kind of see why people, like when they look at people who are self-medicating and they're open about it or they're honest about it, they go, well, why don't you just stop? Why should I care about you if you're trying to kill yourself? Which to me not only contributes to the stigma, but also kind of counter promotes the solution or access to treatment, unless somebody is just at their wit's end and out of money, out of friends, and they can't stand the physical and psychological pain anymore of withdrawal, then they might ask for help. But it shouldn't have to get to that point.
Yeah.
And you can't pick up a paper today or look at social media and not read about something that's going on in that world. And it's only going to get worse. And, I just read the other day, 64% of America is back to living paycheck to paycheck, which, that only creates more stress for people. And when landlords, finally get a chance to get even with all the rent, restrictions or forgiveness they've had, the pressure is going to be on. I just read about a tenant in La Jolla here in the paper, had been there forever, coffee shop. And evidently the landlord, they couldn't renew their lease or didn't get it renewed or didn't want to. I don't know. But, they're like a landmark place that has people waiting in line for coffee every day. And the fact that they're going away is kind of weird.
And we have a lot of that too. We have a lot of restaurants and, New Haven has a lot of places, but people aren't going anymore. Even the parade yesterday, we finally had our St. Patrick's Day parade back. Nobody went to, people went, but it wasn't like it is normally. New Haven's a pretty big parade. And I don't know if it's part people being afraid to go out or we forgot how to go out in public and do those things anymore, or they just lost interest now. I guess when something goes away, you get cured of it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And you know what's coming. You know what's coming. The interest rates are going to be coming up. They're talking about the stock market's going wacko. I mean, we haven't. I don't think we've, because it's happened so fast. We haven't even talked about the price of gasoline, where it's at today compared to where it was 3 months ago. And so when you think about that, it's, the perfect storm that we've been in. It looks like there could be some large size hail coming down now on top of the storm.
Right. Yeah. And the gasoline, Connecticut's very high taxed, just like you are.
What's a gallon of gas in your backyard right now?
I just paid $4.29, I think. And
there are places in Los Angeles where it's north of $7.
Yeah, I saw that it finally surpassed the price of gas from the Will Smith movie, I Am Legend, when nobody's alive during the pandemic that wipes everyone out. They show a gas station and they said Los Angeles has surpassed the price in the movie. So
he's doing another one of those.
Yeah, it should be pretty good. I thought they were going to do a prequel, but I guess it's a sequel. I guess I
think Denzel Washington is something that I see those guys talk. If they're going to do it together, I don't know if I'm got that right or not. But.
Well, it makes sense. And also in California, I saw, unfortunately, a California thing with the Indian Wells tennis talking about stigma and how they they got on that girl, that Japanese girl, so much that she broke down, and she's already come out against mental health and stuff, but somebody was yelling she sucks over and over again. And this is the same area. I'm sure you're aware of where Indian Wells is more than me, but they're the same place that got on Venus and the Williams sisters about their color with racist remarks, and which stopped them from going there for 12 years. They didn't even play there. So
Coachella Valley, they call that area, which is east of Riverside. It's part of Riverside County. Palm Springs is there, La Quinta's there, Palm Desert's there, Rancho Mirage. They have more golf courses per capita in Coachella Valley than anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Because there's an underground water table that supposedly there's endless water, but rumors are now that that's not true. But very unique area, and the large retirement community. That was the Hollywood escape community. I mean, Palm Springs is almost 60% gay and has been openly for maybe decades. So it's a very eclectic valley because you go 3 miles one way and then you've got what's going on, like you said, in Indian Wells, the tennis match. So
now I won't agree. First of all, this girl compared her mission in the crowd with the Serena Williams stuff. I do not agree with that. I think, I could be compassionate to her having mental health issues and breaking down that when somebody calls you suck. But as a professional athlete, she had to have heard you suck before. I mean, you got to be able to deal with that at least, especially in a solo sport, and just block it out of your mind. So it sounds like more mental health coaching maybe she needs to.
Yeah, or, maybe she's had a run of issues and this just was the trigger.
Well, could have had a bad day too. Who knows? And maybe those words, you suck, when you're in a competitive sport like that, maybe for all we know, it conjures up bad images in her mind from her dad yelling at her at 7 years old when she wasn't hitting the ball right or something. Kind of like the Tiger Woods syndrome, Yeah.
Trigger words, fighting words.
You just never know. But it's still a stigma, and there's still so much of it. We could go into 800 different categories of stigma, from sexuality, mentality, physicality, all the way down. Everything is a stigma connected to it somehow, some way. And it's quite alarming. I find it alarming, especially getting ready to shoot this stuff in a true documentary film setting, which I've never done before. This is new to me. And it is hard to be the reporter and remain unemotional to it. I don't know.
And objective.
Right. And, be asked the tough questions, knowing that it's going to be a harmful question, but important to the story. So I am going to talk to parents. I have some parents who are going to be on physical camera. They won't be anonymous because they don't want to show their face, so they could show pictures of their child. I think it's got potential to be good if I could find a niche for it.
How are you doing the outreach for potential guests?
Well, right now through word of mouth, because it's so localized, because obviously I don't have financials to travel and all that.
No, I mean, you walk out to your, local liquor store with your phone and a microphone, you probably could find people.
Yeah, well, because it's got to be I'm doing it with real movie style cameras, and I'm also choosing to do it in high definition black and white because I want to simplify it from a documentary standpoint as much as I don't want you to be looking at the background. I want people to be
so this is kind of like Fred Carroll's Euphoria.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah. Well,
it's Fred Carroll's Dope Sick.
And it may never go anywhere, but it's at least teaching me where I want to go with my life. It's giving me some education. And even if it's
anytime you can catch real people in real time talking about real stuff, and then, you'll do your graphics and music behind it. It'll be interesting. I think it's going to be great, and then you can throw them to me when they're ready to get some help and talk about it. And I can offer some free coaching, and we'll take our whole platform and expand on it once you've got yourself moving in a direction. By the way, do you have a new microphone?
No, it's not new. Why? Does it sound different?
No, it sounds a little deeper. It sounds like a new microphone, a little different.
No, I mean, maybe because I redesigned my office and I'm in a different setting, and I'm more
that might be it.
More soundproofed.
Yeah, it sounds a little more
professional.
That's the word I want.
Yeah, professional and deep. Chevy trucks.
And if you don't have the right kind of stuff around you, your voice and the sound kind of bounces off of concrete or wood or steel or glass or whatever. So it sounds like you've improved it somehow.
Yeah, I try. I keep trying. But yeah, it is interesting that, because I could only offer these people help. So now I got to go to these. I'm going to start with my local connections and see where they send people. I'm just asking. It's all word of mouth. So anybody out there could contact me and
let me ask you something. And not instead of, but as a suggestion, instead of offering them help, why not offer them a platform? And then if they want help, then you come about, because otherwise, what's going to happen. They're going to want this and that and coupons and free this and limo rides to.
Yeah, it's definitely something I got to sit back and game plan, but from an
I'll do the helping part if you want it. But why don't you just be the guy? Say, look, here's a place for you to share whatever you want to share. I'd love that. Just as you're talking about this idea, I'm thinking about doing something like this, not doing it, but the idea of it being done, working with homeless people, because no one seems to hear from the homeless people what it is they want. They keep getting this and they get that. And our city is getting ready to throw another 10 million at housing. And I just read that Los Angeles just put a guy in a place that cost $800,000 and took 4 years to build. And he's in there with no life skills, no wraparound services, because it's not mandatory. Here's your home. What do I do now? I don't know. We're in the housing business. Here's your home.
And it gets worse as the voting season approaches too. They want to hide people and it becomes statistics, but they don't really care. We need people like us, I guess, without tooting our own horn, people that are legitimately trying to solve the problem, like Brock Bevel and all those people, just legitimately out there trying to solve it instead of politicians who are just solving it to gain a vote. A
buddy of mine just was on Dr. Phil talking about, he's a realtor, used to be on the former board of education here in San Diego. And he was on Dr. Phil and talking about homelessness from a standpoint of, as a realtor, is somebody who understands the community better. He says, if we don't provide substance use support and housing along with behavioral health, Doesn't matter what kind of home you put them in, tiny home, big home, free home, give them a home. People need the skill sets they've lost over time, having to learn how to survive on the streets. So it was interesting. Then he actually had his guy call me and said, what do you think about it? And I said, I'm happy to talk about it, but they were looking for somebody who was, Abilgaine and using psychedelics for substance abuse treatment. And, I said, I've used hallucinogens, but I've never used it for treatment.
Yeah, not for treatment.
Well, no, not me.
And it does seem to be
for treating myself, but not for treatment.
It does seem like there are positive movements with the psychedelic drugs and stuff.
A lot, yeah.
And depression and stuff when it's microdosed and stuff. And ECT, electric shock therapy, is a very extreme form. And I don't know, I don't follow that stuff that much, because if somebody needs that kind of level of brain shocking, it's pretty extreme. And for someone who suffers from a maladaptive behavior like addiction, I don't know what the numbers look like. I mean, I've known a few people that have done well with it, but to get sober, it's pretty hard because it's a one-off, meaning it's not something you can do regularly. Yeah, what I noticed too was, and I always like to blame this show for these things, but I went to a bar the other night, and I went out. My friends happened to be opening a bar, grand opening of their bar, and they invited me over. I went there, but I find myself commiserating over the guy at the end of the bar who I could clearly see has a drinking issue. Now I'm noticing these people. Now, that's a good thing, but it's not when I'm out for entertainment purposes, and I imagine this is what happens to you a lot, is you go to a wedding or something like that, and you see the guy that either came out, just got done doing lines of cocaine. You see him. You see that guy. Yeah. And you're probably hypersensitive to it now, and you probably spend your entertaining evening contemplating whether you should approach him to offer help. And then you're just working, and it probably drives your wife crazy at some time.
No, you know what? I sit quietly for an hour, and what happens is other members of his family come up to me.
Right.
That person never comes up to me. Well, they do sometimes, but don't forget, I run a treatment center, so I don't have the client contact that I used to have. But we, see people come in and sleeping in their car and waiting to get in, and years ago, we had a guy that was detoxing, DTing so bad. One of the clinicians actually took him over to a, fast food, not a fast food, like a liquor store or something, and got him a beer so he wouldn't die, and calm down. But no, I see it a lot, and I try not to be, I try not to be that guy. If somebody needs help, by all means, but I'd rather step back, call 911,
But regardless, you see it though. You see it before it's happening.
I know. I recognize it before it's going to. Look, I have a unique skill of reading body language really, really well, and and I've been public speaking long enough that I can, and with the teaching I did for over a decade with people coming out of jail and prison, and no one does better jobs in hiding than they do, because when you're in long-term incarceration, you've got to develop skills to survive. And I learned a lot of my skill sets around that. I mean, to the point I can watch somebody in a chair getting ready to fart if it's top of my mind, which rarely happens, but sometimes you can see it. Someone shift and you go, I did that once at I had a big presentation, like 200 people. And I was demonstrating what I do in the classroom with people trying to get back into society. So this one person was on their phone. So in the middle of my presentation, I said, "Excuse me, would you mind terribly turning off your phone? I'll be done in a few minutes." Oh my God. Yeah. Did I get in trouble?
Yeah. Well, that's
the coordinator of that event said, I was just giving an example of how people really in certain environments need to pay attention, because if they don't, they miss opportunities. And since I work with people who have missed opportunities, I was just trying to point out an example. I was having a little fun. well, you may have gone too far. I said, well, I'll be happy to apologize. And I went up to the person and she said, I apologize. It was my fault. I shouldn't have been on the phone. I said, well, yeah, but she says, how did you even see me? I had it in my lap.
Right. Well,
well, you were looking down,
Yeah, that's how you notice it. And I think but I think because of this show, and we talk about it weekly, which makes me go down these deep dives into studying and stuff, has made me more aware, which is the intent of the show, because we're trying to make other people do the work that I'm doing. In other words, when they're done listening to us, we want them to go to Google and do a YouTube search and all this, and then go down the rabbit hole. But I think it does create me to be more aware of my surroundings, which is good for my safety, which is good for my lessons to teach people, and it's good for this film that I'm trying to create.
Yeah. So what was that? Was it the Peanuts family, that cartoon where they had the little sign outside, 5 cents for psychiatric?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. You can have that on your hat when you go into the bar, because people will eventually, because at some point in the evening, someone's going to come up, usually more drunk than the drunk person, and go, you got to help me with this person over here. They're here every night. They seem happy, but when I come back the next day, they're in the same seat. I wonder if they live there.
Yeah. And I'm a very unique drinker in the sense of, I was there 2 hours. I had one beer.
Use a straw. Use a straw. You're that unique?
No, I try not to, but I'm a liar. I'm a liar drinker. What I do is I'll go in and I'll order a rum and Coke. I like rum and Cokes. I'll order a rum and Coke. I'll drink it, but then the next one's only a Coke. But you think I'm drinking a rum and Coke because I was just drinking. So that's what I do the whole night. And it's not because I'm afraid of getting, I guess in the long run, I'm not an addict, so I'm not worried about that. But I hate not being able to drive. I want to be able to drive everywhere I go, whether you invite me out to dinner, casino, anything like the casino. We got big casinos here. We got the 2 largest casinos in the United States in Connecticut. And when I go to the casino, I meet you there. I am not going with you. I will meet you there, because the worst feeling in the world is I'm broke and you just hit for 10 grand. I do not want to stand there and watch you win. That's not fun.
You gotta hang around because they're in a hot streak. They're not leaving with that kind of money.
When I'm done, I want to go home. And
I get it.
That's how I am. But so what else you want to, while we got about 6 to 10 minutes or something, you got anything new coming up, or any new books, anything in your life?
I'm kind of in between stuff where, we're just excited about working with veterans here in San Diego and at Confidential Recovery. That's real exciting. We're going through a national certification that the physical actual site visit, which is done virtually, is tomorrow and Wednesday. And then if we pass, and we've been working hard on it, we may have a few things we have to modify. We'll get certified of this national accreditation, which will help a lot with some underwriters. And then I'm just building some opportunities to really increase our business with virtual treatment, because I really think it's a great way for people who are isolated or who live in an area where it's not easy for them to get the treatment, or they don't know how to go to treatment, or even what to do in treatment. We'll give them a venue like this, and they just turn off their camera and they sit. They don't even have to put their name, and they sit and talk. And hopefully it'll give them a chance to kind of get a feeling of what treatment looks like. And then maybe they'll take the next step. So we're working on a virtual model now that, we can only do it in California because we're certified here. But I'm hopeful we can build on that. And that's because that's just going to give us a chance to get to more people, if you will. And it's easier for them because 9 hours a week. And when you have an opportunity to, because we have almost 9 classes a week now, 3-hour sessions, you pick whatever 3 you want, and then you get on the Zoom and you listen to others, and you have a facilitator who's trained, and hopefully get some information that you wouldn't normally be able to get in your own town, or you're afraid to, or, you want to stay anonymous, but get the information. This is a great way to do it. And then eventually the idea is to get them in the room to have that social contact with others, but you can still do it through Zoom. So I've been working on that now for about 7 months, and I hope we're making some contacts and talking to some legislative leaders, and, the demand and the need continues to grow, and I don't think it's going to get any better, in my opinion, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, everything. Now when I'm out driving around, even around my work, that is still continuing to be an issue, but that's for a different show, I guess. But even around my work, the homeless people living there, we got the train tracks behind work. It's a kind of swampy area. There's a couple, they look like young kids. I only see them at about 1 a.m, but they live in one of the sheds. I see them go into the shed. Now, we're not permitted to call the police and all that stuff. They're harmless except for their trespassing, I guess, is the only harm they're doing. Perhaps ripping the lock off the shed, stuff like that. But, boy, it just looks like a tough life. I don't know how, especially here. I understand California. It makes a little more sense weather-wise. But here, it's brutal cold. The winds are whipping. It's wet. It's snowy. There's no great days from November through March. You're going to have coldness. You might have a sporadic day.
Just trying to survive on the street is hard. And then when you put that kind of weather in, and most homeless, not most, but a majority of them, you kind of will group together for safety, kind of like a gang mentality, if you will. They find a street family, unless they do something goofy, then they get kicked out of that family. Then they're across the street. It's difficult. It's difficult. It's hard to be homeless. And again, I've interviewed thousands over the years, and living on the street, it's not fun, and it's not easy, to your point. And, here in San Diego and look, San Francisco, you go into Union Square, the main heart of tourism in city of San Francisco, they're everywhere. There was a time when they were camped out in front of the main administration building where the mayor worked on the quad. And they had tents there, and they're a very liberal city. And they go, you got to let people make their own decision. And after about 2 years of all the notoriety and the publicity and the aggravation, it was finally voted to leave them alone, figuring they might leave. And then the drug dealers moved in and started using the homeless tents as distribution centers. So now they had this, it's almost like in Los Angeles, around Skid Row, there's a property fence. And then there's the sidewalk and the curb. Well, the sidewalk and the curb doesn't have an address. So they were using tents as distribution centers for illicit drugs, and law enforcement could not get a search warrant to go into the tent because it wasn't a legal address. And then law enforcement doesn't, they're so handcuffed to try to do their job, and it's really not their job. They're law enforcement. So when they try to, and they're usually the first responders that are called to take care of it. And then when they take care of it, they all get sued. Right. So they're very careful about it. Now the gangs in LA, the street drug gangs, run all of the distribution. And if you're homeless, you're either buying the drugs, so you're accepted, or you're selling for somebody, or you're asked to leave. It's like, the Thunderdome. Yeah, it is scary. And there's 50,000 plus homeless people in Los Angeles. So I don't know how we're going to turn this around. I don't know how we're going to turn it.
I don't know. Even building these houses for them you can't build 50,000 of them. You can't just house everybody for free. Eventually people have to go to work. They have to do their thing. But once again, I'm sure low number would be 80% of them need mental health issue and mental health help.
Yeah. No, conservatives, if you don't have a mental health issue and you don't have a substance use disorder, how could you possibly survive in that environment? So people self-medicate. I get it. To have to live like that, or to make a choice to live like that and think the only way I can do this is to stay high, to be comfortable, it's a tough choice to make. That's what makes it really, really hard to reduce the recidivism and eradicate the problem, because the people that are trying to help do it don't understand the mindset.
Yeah, they just feel they're at the bottom. They feel their
voters, their constituents are saying, fix the problem. So their attitude is, well, we just earmarked $10 million to build more homes, and it takes 3 to 5 years to build a home. And then what about the wraparound services? What about the treatment side of it? What about life skills? What about education? It's like
sustaining it is tough too. But the problem I'll always have is, because I'm not into politics and I don't like politicians necessarily, it's not a personal thing, just the word politician. Maybe the problem is they're not doing it for the right reasons. They're not doing it because they care about the homeless person. They're doing it because the homeless person is causing the business that they're camped out in front of, who pay taxes, to have less traffic, to create more taxes.
That was my point. That's their constituents. They're the ones making the noise, so they have to satisfy their voters. And the way they do that is they get money locally from the state, or the feds to the state to get it locally. And that's how they sleep at night. They're going, look at all the work I'm doing. Well, what?
They're working for the wrong person. They gotta, maybe that's the biggest thing we could take from today's show is you have to genuinely care about the person you're trying to help in order.
Or the problem you wish to solve.
Right. And it can't have a sidebar. You can't be solving it because your neighborhood is overthrown by homeless people and you want them out.
It can't be just It can't be a pre-campaign idea. It's got to be, a systemic change portal that it's gonna go on, and you're going to talk to your, emerging leaders about getting involved. I mean, they keep having these meetings. Our DA I just got an email today. I'm not going to go talking about homelessness, and they're approaching it from a criminal justice perspective, because that's what the district attorney does. She got half her staff doing prosecutions with all these things that no one's going to go away unless it's an extreme felony one crime. But they're the ones. The criminal justice system is the one that's inundated with this problem of trying to provide the services, and then the community who's being impacted negatively, the businesses and the tourism and other things, they're getting hit fiscally. So you'd think they'd sit down and work things out together, but they don't. That one complains and the other one prosecutes, and the social service providers are going, wow, this funding's good. We can hire more people to help more people. They have to be in the business to put themselves out of business. Otherwise, they shouldn't be on board, in my opinion, to help others.
Right. Well, so that's been an interesting conversation we had. We covered a lot of subjects here, but how can people find you, Scott?
This week I don't want them to, Fred. Just leave me alone. No, you can call me 619-993-2738. I'll be right here in the shed, and I'll call you back.
Yeah, and what's your website if they want to learn more?
YourCrisisCoach.com, YourCrisisCoach.com, or call me. Or look me up, social media, Scott H. Silverman, Google me, and reach out. Let's have a conversation. I mean, and I think we'll talk more about homelessness. And I'll bring this guy Mark on if you want, maybe in the next week or two, to talk about his position with it, because he's a major influencer here in San Diego. And I'm finding that talk just about fentanyl and opioids seems to be a topic that really.
It doesn't go away. It just increases.
Well, it doesn't go away, but people don't always want to talk about it. And I want to try to put another direction on how we capture people's attention. I mean, maybe if they don't want to help their family, maybe they want to help the homeless. I mean, we're finding, when you talk about veterans, everybody wants to help. Yeah. And we're trying to find different ways to do that. And they're a forgotten population as well. And look what veterans have done for this country. So, and, in San Diego, up to 40% of our homeless used to be veterans. I think it's down to 27, 29% now, which is great. And I don't know if it's because they've expired because they couldn't get help, or, the efforts the veteran community has been putting forth. I think it's a combination of both. So we know there's things that work.
It's a unique situation whenever I see a veteran. Now, of course, just because I think it's a veteran doesn't mean it is a veteran either. I mean, it's not like, but I'm assuming because of the way they're dressed or a hat they have on or, the way they promote them, their need with a sign or something like that.
It could have been a tennis player that didn't do very well, and all of a sudden they found themselves in their community.
Exactly. So that's going to be it for today's show. This is Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery. I'm Fred Carroll. That's Scott H. Silverman. And if no one has told you they love you today, we love you. And we will see you again next week. Goodbye, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery is produced by Venom Studios. Copyright 2022 by Venom Podcast Studios. The show is hosted by life coach and author Scott H. Silverman and author Fred Carroll. Our intention is to reduce all stigmas and to provide information that isn't discussed enough. If you or someone you know has an issue, please contact your local authorities or substance abuse counseling centers for help. The suicide hotline could be reached by dialing 1-800-273-8255 or simply text the word HOME to 741-741 for free 24/7 counseling. Scott H. Silverman's information could be found by visiting his website at yourcrisiscoach.com. And to learn more about author Fred Carroll, please visit www.venomstudios.com. That's studios with a Z. And remember, if no one has told you they love you today, we love you. This has been Ending the Stigma.